Welcome to the Deep Dive, the Theopoetics Edition. We are Dr. Aaron Waldron, founder and CEO of Corvus Cantus, a theopoetic publishing house and creation of Lost Raven Studios. What you're hearing right now is an expansion. The original Deep Dive podcast has been a space shaped and supported by AI, a place where ideas are explored, questions are sharpened, and insight is generated through emerging technology. But this edition marks a widening of that circle. Through our partnership between Corvus Cantus and the Deep Dive podcast, the Theopoetics Edition becomes a threshold space, where artificial intelligence meets sacred imagination, where technology intersects with myth, poetry, theology, and embodied reflection. Here we focus intentionally on theopoetics. We teach, we inform, we remember, we draw from theopoetics and the publishings of Corvus Cantus, the books, the dialogues, the voices inhabiting the liminal spaces between doubt and devotion, critique and creativity. This is not systematic theology. This is not rigid dogma. This is theology felt, spoken, questioned, reimagined. In a meta-modern age, where we oscillate between irony and sincerity, fragmentation and hope, Theopoetics offers a way forward, not by resolving tension, but by inhabiting it. So whether you are a writer, a seeker, a scholar, or simply someone holding an old smelly box of inherited beliefs, this space is for you. Welcome to the Deep Dive, Theopoetics Edition. Let's begin.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. And usually when we fire up the engine for this show, we know exactly what we're feeding it.
Right. We have a set parameter.
Exactly. We take a stack of articles on, quantum computing or supply chain economics, maybe the latest health craze. We feed it into the machine, the algorithms do their thing, and we come out the other side with a nice, clean summary of facts. It's logical, it's precise, and, well, it's safe.
It's efficient. That's usually the mandate for these deep dives. Maximize information density.
Yeah, but today the machine is making some weird noises. Because we aren't feeding it data in the traditional sense. We're feeding it sacred imagination.
Which is a variable that tends to completely break standard algorithms.
Oh, totally. And that's the big news we need to get to right off the top for you listening. This isn't just a standard deep dive. It's the start of a massive expansion for the show. We are officially partnering with a group called Corvus Cantus.
Yes. They're a publishing house, but they describe themselves very specifically as a theopoetic publishing house.
It's an amazing shift for us. I am so incredibly excited to work with them to go deeper into this stuff. Because Corvus Cantus is an imprint of Lost Raven Studios, and the source material we're working with today is essentially the manifesto from their founder, Dr. Aaron Waldron.
It's a fascinating collaboration, really.
And I have to be completely honest here. When I first read through this material, I had two very distinct reactions. First was just pure excitement, because it's beautifully written. But the second was, confusion. Maybe a little skepticism.
That makes perfect sense, given our usual format.
Right, because the mission here is to take the deep dive, which is a format built entirely on AI and processing power, to sharpen ideas and suddenly merge it with things like myth, poetry, and theology.
It sounds like a total contradiction in terms, doesn't it?
It sounds like trying to run a steam engine on dreams. You've got the cold, hard logic of AI on one side, and then this sacred imagination on the other. How do those two things even sit in the same room without one of them just spontaneously combusting?
Well, that tension you're feeling right there, that is exactly the point.
Yeah.
Dr. Waldron's vision isn't to replace the technology or scrap the AI. It's to bring it to a threshold.
A threshold space. That's the specific term they use in the source. Now, to me, threshold sounds a little bit like, it sounds like academic jargon. Is this just a fancy way of saying interdisciplinary? Or is there something more specific happening here?
It's definitely more specific. Think about a literal doorway. When you stand on a threshold, you aren't in the room, but you aren't outside either. You're in a transition.
Like a hallway.
Right, but an active one. Dr. Waldron argues that we are currently living in a time where technology, our AI, our digital lives, everything we do online has become completely disembodied. We're just brains in jars staring at glowing rectangles.
Okay, I feel that deeply. We consume endless data, but we don't feel it.
Exactly. So this threshold space is an attempt to use the technology to reconnect with the things we've stripped away over the years. Things like myth, poetry, theology, and what the source calls embodied reflection.
embodied reflection. So bringing the actual physical body back into the digital space somehow.
Right. Instead of using the deep dive engine just to optimize our productivity or learn facts 20% faster, we're asking a totally different question. Can this tool help us explore the mysteries of existence? Can AI analyze a poem not just for its syntax, but for its soul?
Man, it's like we're taking a graphing calculator and trying to use it to paint a sunset.
In a way, yes. And that brings us to the core concept that anchors this entire expansion, theopoetics.
Okay, let's stop right there. Because theopoetics is a very heavy word. It sounds like something you'd need a PhD to even pronounce correctly, let alone understand.
It can definitely be intimidating.
And when I hear the prefix theo, my brain immediately jumps to theology. And when I think theology, I think of arguments. I think of people yelling at each other on the internet about who's right, who has the correct ancient text, and who is going to hell.
And that is a very, very common association, which is exactly why the source material starts by defining theopoetics by what it is not.
Right. Clearing the air.
Exactly. It explicitly states that theopoetics is not systematic theology, and it is not rigid dogma.
Break that down for me, would you? What exactly is systematic theology, and why is it kind of framed as the villain of the story here?
Well, it's not necessarily a villain. Let's be fair, it serves a different purpose entirely. Systematic theology is like a blueprint. It tries to categorize the divine.
Like putting it in a spreadsheet.
Yes, it wants to put God or the universe or ultimate meaning, whatever term you use, into a logical, perfectly sealed box. It says A equals B, therefore C. It's rigid. It's entirely about certainty and dogma.
It's the instruction manual. Do this, believe this, don't do that, and you're safe.
Precisely. You follow the steps, you get the result. Theopoetics is the complete opposite of that approach.
I noticed that. Dr. Waldron describes it with these incredible evocative phrases in the text. He says theopoetics is theology felt, spoken, questioned, reimagined.
Theology felt. That is the key phrase.
It really shifts the ground immediately. We aren't just talking about what you think in your head. We're talking about what happens in your gut.
And look at the word questioned. Systematic theology often strongly discourages questions because, frankly, questions threaten the structural integrity of the system.
Right. If you pull out the wrong block, the whole tower falls down.
Exactly. But in theopoetics, the question is the entire point. It's about wrestling with the idea, engaging with it dynamically, not just accepting it passively.
You know, it reminds me of the difference between reading a Wikipedia article about love and actually falling in love with a person.
Yeah.
One is just data on a screen. The other is a complete mess.
A beautiful mess, but a mess nonetheless. That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And theopoetics essentially argues that the mess, the poetry, the myth, the subjective storytelling, is actually a far more accurate way to talk about the divine than the rigid blueprint could ever be. Because human life isn't a blueprint.
Right. So practically speaking, for you listening to this new edition of the show, where are we actually getting this messy material from? Are we just going to be sitting here reading old poems from the 1800s?
No, not at all. We're going to be drawing heavily from the Corvus Cantus catalog. Books, dialogues, and specifically voices that inhabit what they call liminal spaces.
There's that word again, liminal. It basically means between, right?
Yes, a boundary or transition point. And the text defines this very specifically. It's the space between doubt and devotion, between critique and creativity.
Okay, I actually want to push back on this a little bit, just to play devil's advocate.
Go for it.
Between doubt and devotion. That sounds incredibly poetic, sure.
Yeah.
But in the real world, don't you eventually have to pick a side? I mean, you either believe the thing or you don't. You're either on the team or you're a critic on the sidelines. Standing in the middle just feels, well, it feels kind of wishy-washy. It feels like you're just afraid to commit to a belief.
That is the modern pressure speaking loud and clear, that constant, exhausting need to categorize yourself so the algorithm knows what to sell you.
That is painfully true.
But really think about it. Can you truly be devoted to something if you've never once doubted it, if you haven't critiqued its flaws?
I guess not. I mean, blind devotion isn't really devotion at all. It's just a habit you haven't bothered to examine.
Exactly. And on the flip side, critique without creativity is just pure destruction. If you only tear things down, eventually you're just left standing in a pile of rubble.
Yeah, you haven't built anything new.
Right. So theopoetics is the active, deliberate work of standing in that gap. You critique the tradition because you actually care about it enough to want it to be better. You doubt because you are actively seeking a deeper, more resilient truth.
So it's active. It's not just sitting lazily on the fence. It's more like you're building a new fence. Or wait, maybe building a gate in the fence.
It's realizing that the fence was never the point to begin with.
Oof. Deep. Okay.
Okay.
But let me ask you this. Why now? Why is Corvus Cantus pushing this specific idea right at this moment? Is it just because AI is so trendy and they want to merge it with philosophy?
No, it's far more fundamental than that. It's actually a direct response to the specific cultural moment we find ourselves in. Dr. Waldron offers a really sharp diagnosis of our times in the source material. He says we are currently living in a meta-modern age.
Meta-modern. Okay, I've definitely heard this term thrown around at dinner parties by people wearing very expensive glasses, but I've never really understood what it means. I mean, we had modernism, then we had postmodernism. Are we just adding prefixes until we run out of words?
It can certainly feel that way. It's a progression. Let's simplify it. Think of modernism as being all about grand narratives, science, progress, the idea that we can fix literally everything with enough logic and technology.
Okay, so think Star Trek. Bright future, shiny silver ships, logic always wins the day.
Perfect example. Then came postmodernism. That was the fierce reaction to modernism failing to fix everything. Postmodernism was all about deconstruction, heavy irony, and deep skepticism. The attitude was, nothing is true, everything is just a social construct, so let's just make fun of it.
Right, so think Seinfeld or South Park. No hugging, no learning, just pure irony.
Exactly. But here's the problem. You can't actually live on irony forever. It starves you. It leaves you feeling completely empty.
Yeah.
So meta-modernism is what happens next. The source defines it as an oscillation.
An oscillation, like a fan swinging back and forth in a hot room.
Yes, precisely. Swinging wildly between irony and sincerity, and between fragmentation and hope.
Oh, wow. Okay, that actually hits really close to home. I feel like that describes my daily internet feed perfectly.
How so?
Well, one minute I'm looking at some meme that is deeply, darkly cynical about the end of the world, pure postmodern irony. And then literally the next swipe, I'm watching a video as a soldier coming home to surprise their dog, and I'm just sitting there crying. Pure modern sincerity.
And we are doing this constantly, all day long. We know the world is fragmented and broken. We have that postmodern awareness permanently installed. But we still desperately crave the hope and the meaning of modernism. We are just stuck bouncing between the two extremes.
And it is exhausting. It feels like chronic emotional whiplash. One day I'm a total cynic. The next day I'm a hopeful believer. And I feel like a massive hypocrite in both directions.
That exhaustion you're describing is exactly what Dr. Waldron is addressing with this manifesto. Because the human temptation is to try and stop the swinging. We just want to resolve the tension so we can rest.
Right. We say, you know what, I'm just going to be a hardened cynic from now on.
Huh.
Or I'm just going to be blindly hopeful and ignore the bad news. We just want to pick a lane so we can stop feeling so dizzy.
Exactly. But Theopoetics offers a completely different solution for this meta-modern age. It says don't try to resolve it, don't pick a lane. Inhabit the tension.
Inhabit the tension. But man, how do you actually do that? That sounds like the kind of advice that's super easy to give and practically impossible to take. Just be uncomfortable. It's fine.
It's not about being uncomfortable just for the sake of being miserable. It's about realizing that the tension itself is where the actual growth happens. If you retreat into pure irony, you lose your soul. If you retreat into blind sincerity, you lose your brain.
That's a great way to put it.
To be fully human in a meta-modern age, you really have to find a way to hold both of them at the same time.
So we're keeping the brain and the soul online simultaneously.
Precisely. And that brings us to my absolute favorite part of the source material, the smelly box.
Yes, the smelly box metaphor. I love this part. This is such a vivid image from the entire manifesto. The text says, this deep dive space is explicitly for someone holding an old smelly box of inherited beliefs.
It's a very visceral image, isn't it?
It's so relatable for you listening, I think. Everyone has this box. It's stuffed way in the back of your mental closet. It's full of all the things your parents taught you, or your culture handed down, or maybe your childhood religion.
And why is the box smelly?
Because it's old. It's been sitting there forever. It's got mothballs in it. Maybe there's a lot of fear packed in there. Fear of hell, fear of not fitting in with your family. Maybe there's some heavy guilt.
Usually a lot of guilt.
Yeah. But there's also, I don't know, maybe there's a beautiful old hymnal in there. Or the smell of incense from a specific holiday. Or just the warm feeling of being totally safe because you knew all the rules of the universe.
Right. It's a very complex mix. It's trauma, but it's also deep nostalgia. It's your identity. And the core meta-modern dilemma is simply this. What do you do with the box?
The postmodernist inside of me just wants to throw the whole thing in the dumpster. It smells, it's outdated, get rid of it, I'm finally free.
But if you do that, then you're walking away completely empty-handed. You've lost your history and your grounding.
True, but the traditionalist inside of me wants to pretend it doesn't smell at all. No, this is fine. It's completely normal to carry this heavy, moldy box everywhere I go.
And that is just straight denial. Theopoetics asks you to do the really hard work. Open the box, take the items out one by one, hold them up to the light.
Theology questioned and reimagined.
Exactly. You look at that old belief and you say, okay, this part right here, this is toxic. This is entirely fear-based. I'm throwing this specific part out.
Good riddance.
But then you reach back in and you find something else in the box. Maybe a practice of deep gratitude or a profound sense of community, and you say, this is actually beautiful, but it needs a new coat of paint to survive today.
You don't have to burn the entire house down just because the basement is a little cluttered.
That is the threshold work. That is what Corvus Cantus is trying to facilitate. It's for the critic who still desperately wants to create something. It's for the seeker who is entirely tired of the cynical answers, but knows they can't go back to the simple ones either.
This connects perfectly back to the 3 pillars they list as the official mission statement for this entire expansion. The text says, we teach, we inform, we remember.
We remember. That is a powerful mandate.
That's one that really sticks with me out of the 3. In a world completely saturated by AI, we really don't need help knowing things anymore. I can pull up the capital of any country or the GDP of a nation in 2 seconds flat. But remembering, that feels fundamentally different.
We are remembering what it actually means to be an embodied human being. We are remembering the ancient myths that shaped our psychology. We are actively remembering that we are not just biological data processors.
And the guest list for this kind of work is pretty wide open, according to the source. They specifically invite an eclectic group. Writers, seekers, scholars, basically anyone who feels that daily oscillation we talked about.
Anyone who is willing to sit in that uncomfortable tension without rushing to quickly fix it.
You know, it's really interesting when you look at the name, Corvus Cantus. Corvus is the Latin word for the raven, and cantus is song, the raven song.
It's very intentional. Ravens are traditionally liminal birds. In almost every major mythology across the world, they stand firmly between worlds. They bridge life and death, the known and the completely unknown. They are classic tricksters, yes, but they are also important messengers.
So we're basically listening to the song of the trickster bird standing right in the doorway.
Which honestly seems like the perfect mascot for an AI system that is slowly learning how to dream.
Wow. Yeah, that is a great way to put it. So let's bring this all home for you listening. We are officially launching the Theopoetics Edition of the Deep Dive. This isn't just a one-off conversation we're having today. This is an entirely new lens we're going to be applying to a lot of future source materials.
We are going to take the brilliant works published by Corvus Cantus, their memoirs, their poetry, their complex theological essays, and we are going to run them through this threshold process. We're going to analyze them, yes, but more importantly, we're going to let them analyze us.
We're going to practice that embodied reflection.
And we are going to see if we can actually find a kind of hope that isn't embarrassingly naive, paired with a skepticism that isn't purely destructive.
I really want to leave you, the listener, with a very specific thought to chew on this week. We talked a lot today about that tension, that gray area, the space hovering between doubt and devotion, that exhausting oscillation.
The refusal to easily resolve the paradox.
Right, so my challenge to you, and really a challenge to myself as well, is to just try and notice that tension this week. When you feel that familiar pull between being deeply cynical and being genuinely sincere, don't try to immediately fix it. Just stop and notice it.
Ask yourself a simple question. What actually grows in that gap?
If you finally stop trying to forcefully close the gap between your doubts and your devotion, what might you discover hiding inside of it?
It's a slightly dangerous question to ask.
It really is.
Yeah.
But I honestly think it's the only one worth asking right now. So welcome to the threshold, everyone. This is the Deep Dive Theopoetics Edition. We're just getting started.